Welcome back to Dark Cinema Recaps. Today we're working through our Exorcist franchise, and trust me, at this point it is work, with 2005's Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist, and that is the legitimate title. For a franchise with probably the best horror film ever made, and the rest of it, there's a lot of shit in there with very few pieces of sweet corn. Next week we got Exorcist Believer, then before we cap it off with our long franchise recap, I think one more trip to Washington's in order. In 1944, a Nazi SS lieutenant named Kessel forces a parish priest of a small village in occupied Holland, Father Lancaster Merrin, to participate in arbitrary executions in retaliation for the murder of a German trooper in exchange for sparing the village. Now, I'll be honest, in a bad film, this scene was tits. It was really, really well done. In 1947, Merrin, whose faith was shattered by the incident, is an archaeologist in Dorothy, a remote area in Turkana region of British Kenya, excavating Byzantine church built around the 5th century, long before Christianity had reached that region of Africa. I know, it sounds familiar, doesn't it? But apparently this is all canon. Last one was canon, this one's canon. I don't make the rules. He meets up with Father Francis and Major Granville, the British military officer overseeing the dig, making their way to Dorothy with Chuma, Merrin's translator and guide. Merrin introduces Francis to Rachel, a doctor of Imqui, an enthusiastic convert who provides accommodation for the two men. That was a mouthful. As they tour the dig site, Merrin and Francis notice that the church in perfect condition, as though it had been deliberately buried immediately after the construction was complete. On the site, Merrin meets a disabled young outcast named Chechi. Although dissuaded by Chuma, Merrin brings the boy to Rachel for medical treatment. Once the door's uncovered, Merrin, Francis and Chuma go inside the church. A hidden passageway leads them to a crypt containing a demonic idol, an ancient sanctuary where human sacrifice was performed. Merrin introduces that the church was expressly built to seal its underground temple. On their way back, they are confronted by local elders who demand Merrin stop digging. Francis contacts Granville to send a detachment to guard to dig against potential robbers. Despite Merrin's objections, 2 British soldiers attempting to loot some precious stones from the church are then found dead the next day. Despite the Christian symbolism used in the murders and the testimony to local warrior Jomo that the 2 men were affected by strange madness, Granville, blaming the Turkana, goes to town to uncharacteristic fit of rage, demanding the purpose culprit be given up, shooting a young woman in cold blood when the locals protest. Determined to stop the Christian evil from spreading, Jomo breaks into the mission school and slaughters the students, including one of Imekwe's sons, before he is shot on the spot by British soldiers. Francis has a disturbing realization that Cheche's unusual recovery was not a divinely wrought miracle as he first thought, and considered baptizing him to save his soul. The boy accepts on the condition that he be held at the church. Meanwhile, a shaken and guilt-ridden Granville commits suicide by shooting himself in the mouth. Turkana elders demand that the church be reburied, and Francis, who they hold responsible for the spread of Christian evil and the arrival of the British troops, and Cheche be handed over to them and killed, but are turned down. Francis, assisted by Rachel, baptizes Cheche at the church, but the demon inside the boy attacks them. Realizing an exorcism is in order, Francis leaves quickly to fetch a copy of a Roman ritual. An earthquake erupts and seals the entrance to the church. The next morning, Merrin and the British find Francis tied to a tree, naked and shot with arrows. The dying Francis reveals to Merrin that Cheche is possessed and begs him to perform the exorcism. Another earthquake shifts the rocks, unblocking the church entrance just enough to allow Merrin to go inside. At the underground temple, Merrin finds Rachel, who runs away under a trance, and the possessed Cheche. After donning Francis's vestments, Merrin returns to the church to begin the exorcism. The demon offers Merrin a chance to rewrite his past, at which Merrin, in an hallucination, finds himself back in 1944 Holland when he refuses to cooperate. Kessel instead of Merrin, and all the villagers are killed for his defiance. When Merrin comes back to his senses, the demon mocks the futility of his attempt to change what happened. An aurora appears in the sky as the evil spirit's influence causes the entrance Rachel to attempt to kill herself, Emiqui has violently beat his wife, and the Takana to charge into battle against the British. The exorcism eventually succeeds and the demon leaves Cheche's body, causing him to regress to his former condition. With the demon exorcised, life in Dorote returns to normal and the British detachment leaves. One of the local elders, however, warns that the demon will pursue Merrin. Merrin bids farewell to Rachel and Cheche before leaving for Rome, having his faith now regained. That was awful.